When a new idea first takes hold, the project's scale expands with overwhelming speed. Suddenly, the blueprint for a global empire seems entirely tangible. Yet, the reality is most of these ventures are destined to implode before they ever reach the market. We often blame external forces for these failures. It is easier to point toward a crowded market or a sudden economic shift than to look inward. But the primary cause of death for early-stage companies is internal friction. Founders frequently sabotage their own vision through avoidable errors made in the first weeks of operation. Noam Wasserman's research in the Founder's Dilemmas reveals that the evolution of a startup follows a remarkably consistent flowchart of choices. Mapping this flowchart early on allows a team to recognize the structural traps that historically sink their peers. A true dilemma has no clean mathematical solution. It is a mandatory trade-off where every path forward requires a specific sacrifice. The first fork in the flowchart appears almost immediately, the decision to build the company alone or to recruit co-founders. Most teams take the path of least resistance. They start a business with friends and agree to split the equity equally from day one. This static 50-50 split rarely survives reality. As roles change and the daily workload shifts, a massive disparity in actual contribution emerges. This imbalance often becomes toxic. When the equity no longer matches the effort, the founding team begins to dissolve from the inside out. Avoiding this requires having difficult conversations about ownership long before the business has any actual value. Professional teams use a vesting schedule. Instead of a large upfront grant, equity is earned incrementally over several years, ensuring that ownership is tied to continued long-term performance. Prioritizing the structural health of the company over the immediate comfort of a friendship is often the only way to survive the co-founder dilemma. Once the team is set, the flowchart moves toward the next major crossroads, the dilemma of funding. Founders must choose: bootstrap a small, sturdy business they own entirely, or take venture capital to chase rapid scale, surrendering a portion of their authority. Demanding total control as a king often starves the company. Without outside capital, the business may lack the resources necessary to reach its full potential. However, choosing to be rich by taking venture capital introduces board members who can, and often do, fire the founder from their own creation to protect the investment. These trade-offs compound. A founder decides if they would rather own the entirety of a small project or a tiny fraction of a massive one. While no path is perfectly painless, recognizing these structural trade-offs prevents walking into unexpected sacrifices. The struggle of a young startup is rarely as chaotic as it feels in the moment. It is a sequence of binary choices that other founders have navigated before. The dilemmas faced by past founders provide a map for current ones. The patterns of failure are legible enough to be anticipated. Founders who proactively study these trade-offs are no longer victims of the unknown. Anticipating friction allows a leader to build a structure that survives the early years, rather than reacting to crises after the damage is done. This path leads toward the dollar sign on the cover. Resolving these internal dilemmas doesn't guarantee a fortune, but it ensures that the team is stable enough to actually face the external challenges of the market. A true visionary doesn't just rely on the strength of an idea, they build the company with their eyes wide open to the dilemmas waiting on the flowchart.